The vanguard units of the United States Army are entering Mexico. We talked with you about who is next on the invasion list in the Trump era, Trump 47. Naturally, they bombed Iran first, and now they've brought the fleet up to Iran. And just so you know, a second aircraft carrier strike group is heading there. One is already on the invasion line. An aircraft carrier strike group is a deadly, absolutely powerful force. The next one was in Venezuela. We all know about the kidnapped dictator. The security detail, which consisted of Cuban special forces, was eliminated. The third one was supposed to be Cuba itself, but the actions of the cartels, especially the Sinaloa cartel's operations, changed that. They have quite a few so-called holdings near the border of the United States of America, and that's where they have their drones stationed. Well, in general, there's a lot of stuff stationed there, and it seems like they made us decide to temporarily back off from Cuba. I would put it this way, and also change our schedule. They call it the schedule for clearing out the Western Hemisphere, and others call it the schedule of illegal actions by the United States of America. Illegal from the perspective of United Nations laws, of course, which everyone breaks whenever they feel like it, because laws are just laws. If it's not backed by a club, it's worth less than the ink it's written with. Let's put it that way. 2 days ago, we closed the airspace over El Paso, which is the border area between the United States and Canada, and destroyed drones flying into the United States. We grounded all civilian planes, turned back those that were heading that way, and didn't let anyone take off from the territory adjacent to our border. On our side, however, people were still far from calm. They were used to not facing any resistance to their actions, both at the border and on Mexican territory. By the way, what do you think about our commandos who are currently entering the territory of a sovereign state? But Mexico didn't attack us, right? They did allow drugs to be brought in from their territory, and underage prostitutes were brought here. They let in about 300,000 during Biden's 4 years in office, at least 300,000 children. It could be much more, because they might have come supposedly with their parents, but just 300,000 children were brought in without any escort, and then handed out to someone. We don't know to whom, but that's our internal problem. We've already found more than half of these children, and some of them, of course, are no longer alive. As we suspect, Sinaloa and other cartels easily killed those who resisted. But this is the state of Mexico. They do whatever they want. As I already said, Mexico itself didn't attack us, but it also didn't do anything about it. Even though we asked many times, the guys told us that it wasn't their problem. And we said that we were ready to come together with them. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, what do you think about this? And since we've started talking about this and took a minute away from the main topic, I'll say that when you like the video, it helps the channel grow. And of course, when you subscribe and hit the bell, it's good for the channel and actually good for you too, because you'll get a notification that something new and interesting has come out. You can check out what it is and then decide whether to open it or not, watch it or not, but at least you'll be in the loop. So, to stay in the loop, you need to subscribe and click on that thing called the bell. After the extraordinary, that means events in Mexico, extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary events in Mexico. I will tell you another absolutely remarkable story about the elections in the United States and about Trump's huge victory, and I think you will be very, very happy.
We welcome the Mexican Senate's approval for these joint naval exercises, which was a key goal of our bipartisan delegation to Mexico last weekend. These exercises will further enhance cooperation between our two countries, while also increasing our ability to intercept illegal shipments at sea, especially Chinese vessels carrying precursors used for drug production. It's crucial to stop this poison before it reaches the port where the cartels process it. Here. Well, you know, you can't say that word on YouTube. They smuggle it north through drug trafficking networks, making tracking and seizure much harder.
The Mexican leadership is afraid of the cartels, and that's natural. They kill politicians, shoot, kill, torture their families, hunt down officers, army police, and immediately deal with anyone who wants to allow American troops into Mexico. but under serious pressure from Trump. The Mexican Senate, absolutely unbelievably, no one expected this, voted in favor of the deployment. Well, at the very least, it was said to be special forces, right? Under that pretext, you can bring in anyone, well, Americans, yes, American special forces. When people were only afraid of the cartels and the United States wasn't doing anything to anyone personally, well, the cartels were winning. Naturally, with the kidnapping of Maduro, everything really changed. United States squadrons are off the coast, United States air defense is shooting down drones, and sovereign cartels easily enter the citadels of other countries. I'm talking about Venezuela. Yes, violating the sovereign borders of the United States. It has also become frightening personally for those who run Mexico, and now they have to choose between the cartel's revenge and a United States strike. And the Mexican Senate decided that Trump is scarier than the cartels. I don't know how he managed to do that.
We have more information. United States Special Forces received permission to enter Mexico by a decision of the Mexican Senate. 105 votes in favor, 0 against, and 1 abstained.
So, 105 in favor, 0 against. It's almost impossible. 105 in favor, 0 against, and 1 abstained. Well, still, he chickened out completely.
The Mexican Senate approved the arrival of Navy SEALs to participate in exercises aimed at increasing the combat readiness of Special Operations Forces. And so, according to further reports, by a vote of 105 to 0 with 1 abstention, the Navy SEALs are officially on their way. So, American Navy SEALs from the United States Navy will enter Mexico to conduct large-scale military exercises with the Mexican Navy. These exercises are directly aimed at illegal drugs entering the country and then the United States.
So, United States Special Forces are entering Mexico to conduct joint exercises with Mexican Marines, exercises on how to clear areas of Mexico from criminals.
Claudia Sheinbaum, who to be honest is a bit of a clown, publicly refused to allow United States troops into her country. That's what she does publicly. She declares there will be no United States military presence. We don't want American troops in our country. And now, as of the time this video was recorded on February 13th, she has made a complete 180-degree turn. Now she's saying, let them come in. Please send us Navy SEALs. Send us help. Send us anyone. Send us anyone who can defeat the cartels.
I don't know how Trump managed to persuade Sheinbaum to officially allow a unit of United States troops in, but he did it. Somehow he did it. Just to be clear, this was considered completely impossible. They quietly came in on their own, left on their own. Supposedly no one knows about it, but it was supposed to be impossible. We all understand that the politicians of Mexico dream of us helping them get rid of the plague called the drug cartel, but by inviting someone to do this, they risk the lives of their loved ones and, of course, their own lives as well. And their own army is riddled. The Mexican army is simply riddled with cartel agents, and any plan immediately becomes known to the bandits, from whom, well, you shouldn't expect much mercy, right? They can easily feed you to the crocodiles. And now let's think again. Tons of drugs are coming to us from Mexico. Partly China supplies the cartels, partly they produce something themselves on their own territory. And now let's think again. Tons of drugs are coming to us from Mexico, partly supplied by China. With some raw materials, they are processed and completed in Mexico. She cooks something herself, does something, and at the border they easily kill those who get in their way, easily kidnap police officers who try to resist. In the United States, gangs are organized that distribute this stuff, collect money there, protect their own, and attack others. Life is not exactly what we imagined. We will live in the United States of America. Hundreds of thousands of young Americans get hooked on this and die. Gangsters hide behind the protection of Mexico, and well, you can't get to them. If you act officially, act according to the law, there they are protected by international laws. And the army and Mexico, of course, is also a sovereign state, and Mexico itself can't do anything about them and doesn't do anything. More and more people are dying here. The cartels are coming up with new delivery routes instead of sea routes, for example, using drones in the border areas of both the United States and Mexico. People live in constant fear for their lives and the lives of their loved ones. And we, the United States, are the most powerful country in the world. So what can our power do here? Well, let's think about what we can do. We can complain to the United Nations. Well, Ukraine has already complained to the United Nations, right? Yes, we can also do nothing. There's that option. Obama did nothing, Biden did nothing. Or we can take justice into our own hands and destroy the cartel. And if Mexico gets in the way, then we can explain to their leadership how nice it would be for them to become neighbors with their good friend Maduro in a multi-level mansion with all the amenities. Well, of course, you want to know what's happening on the other fronts. Where else? The United States has taken into its own hands the resolution of international issues that are also our problems. International issues that are our problems. International problems, for example, Iran, which seems far away but is still our problem. 5 times a day, every day, they swear that they will first destroy the little Satan, meaning Israel, and then they will destroy everything connected to the big Satan. Well, I mean the devil, the United States of America. So the first group is already there, as you know, the first carrier group, and now the second group is on its way. I already told you about this. This is a serious, very powerful force. Fuel supply ships have been brought in, there are ships with fuel, additional squadrons have flown in, and now bomber squadrons are on their way. The United States just pulled off an absolutely brilliant intelligence trick. I would say yes, the first trick of its kind in history. All the forces moved toward Iran. When was it? A week ago? Yes, maybe a little more. Even 8 days ago. The whole armada that was there moved, including the Israelis, including British planes. The United States General Staff went into the bunker. The president and his team headed to the observation room. If Iran had its own people anywhere, they were all reporting the same thing. Yes, that's right. It's starting. And so, that's what it means. Iran, believing that it had started, carried out all its defensive actions, rolled out its missiles, and opened its covert centers. The communications company. They uncovered everything that could be launched toward Israel from Saudi Arabia, oil fields, and the Sassanids. And at the moment when the attack was supposed to begin, everything suddenly turned around and went back to its places. But United States satellites and Israel's ground surveillance registered all the points, all previously unknown sites or some kind of launch sites, everyone who was supposed to respond to it. After analyzing the data, the command concluded that the firepower was not enough to deal with Iran in one go, and with Iran. Along with the Abraham Lincoln Strike Group, the Gerald Ford Strike Group was deployed too. That's exactly my point. When asked by a journalist if Trump wanted a change of power in Iran, Trump replied, "That would be the best thing that could happen for this wonderful country." "And why are we sending a second strike group?" the journalist asked Trump. "Sometimes you need to seriously scare people to make them do what's in the interest of their nation, not in their personal interests," President Trump replied. Whether we can scare the Iranians, I don't know. The second participant in the events in the Middle East theater is the Prime Minister. Netanyahu said that the only way for the Ayatollahs to stay in power is to completely stop the nuclear program, dismantle the production of ballistic missiles, and stop financing and supporting terrorists. Bible told Trump that he is ready to strike Iran alone without the United States with pinpoint strikes on key positions, on testing sites, and on various production facilities. A detailed plan of all of Iran's pressure points was sent to Washington. Naturally, Israel is not going to, and is not capable of, liberating Iran from the mullahs or capturing territory. Of course, Israel will not, cannot, and does not intend to respond to Iran in that way. Of course, whoever attacks, whether it's Israel alone or Israel together with America and Britain, Iran will try to set fire to the Sunni oil fields, fire at Israeli civilian neighborhoods, and at United States bases in the region. And probably the main thing is the oil tankers, the oil-carrying ships in the Strait of Hormuz, which is probably the most tense oil transport artery in the world, a flow of oil on which the energy supply of the entire world depends. But there's also a danger for Iran in acting too successfully, because then the United States will definitely start an operation to liberate Iran from the mullahs.
We know that negotiations, at least one attempt to hold them, are being conducted with Iran. However, at the same time, these negotiations are ongoing, and it is still unclear when exactly the second meeting between the Iranian delegation and the United States delegation will take place. While all this is happening, we continue to build up military forces in this region. We continue to send aircraft and naval vessels. We already have the Abraham Lincoln Aircraft Carrier Strike Group fully deployed and ready for combat operations, and a second such group is already on its way. Well, now we have new information. I'll bring it up on the screen now. This is from the New York Times. Let me show you this. It's from the New York Times newspaper. There's a lot of information, so I'll present it as clearly as I can. It says that the options President Trump considered include military action against Iran's nuclear program and its capability to launch ballistic missiles. That means they will strike nuclear facilities, ballistic missile sites, launchers, and other similar targets. These are exactly what's on the target list. He is also considering options that would include sending American commandos to attack specific Iranian military targets. So now they're saying that we can carry out a limited ground operation in Iran. We can deploy troops. They would go in under the cover of bomber airstrikes. These airstrikes would provide cover for the ground assault team, which would most likely be Delta Force or Navy Sea Air and Land S or Sea Air and Land Team 6, since that's their main job.
Three sources reported, so it's either a lie or disinformation. That's how they scare people, but when they're planning something, everyone stays silent about what might happen. But maybe by saying that we'll only send our guys to steal from Ayatollah when the missiles start flying, we'll actually send them quietly in battered pickups. Just like how Islamic State of Iraq and Syria moved around, or Harakat al-Muqawama al-Islamiyah accompanied by Mossad and Iranian opposition members, right to where Ayatollah is hiding. And we'll save him from something or other. He needs to be saved from the people's wrath. He needs to pray in silence, alone, for many years, atoning for his sins. Or we'll blow up all the commanders' phones, or cut off communication between all the bunkers and the Revolutionary Guard Corps command. I don't know, I just don't have enough imagination. I rose to the high rank of corporal and didn't get a chance to start commanding operations to overthrow the Iranian government. By the way, the long-range bombers have been put on combat readiness. I think they call it number 2, which isn't quite sleeping dressed in the planes, but it's close to that. Here's what the Israelis are saying.
We're going through a crazy period in the Middle East right now, where just a month ago an attack was called off. We don't know how last minute it was, but it was very urgent. And just a couple of days ago, Prime Minister Netanyahu almost immediately went to Washington and met with President Trump. They usually arrive with fanfare and announcements, which all happened. He entered the building. Nothing came out of this meeting, not a single statement, not a single press release, except for Trump's words that the meeting was good, which is very uncharacteristic for him.
Good talks, yes, good.
And right after that, the Pentagon announces the meeting was good, and we're sending another aircraft carrier group to the Middle East.
Remember, I said that based on the analysis of Iran's response, supposedly an attack, a map showing the locations of Iran's defensive and offensive assets was created and sent to the Pentagon.
That's not true.
Right now, we have the largest concentration of troops in the Middle East. Several people have told me that in terms of weaponry, this is the largest buildup since the first invasion of Iraq, not in manpower, since that was a ground invasion. But when it comes to weapon systems and things like that, this is the best of the best in the American arsenal, both defensive and offensive.
Yes, what you said is very important, defensive. Because the Americans deploy their terminal high-altitude area defense missile defense systems in many allied countries in this region, including Israel, including Saudi Arabia, including Qatar, as well as at other bases. But we'll talk about all of this in just a second.
Not only to strike, but also to cover their allies with a protective shield.
This past weekend. And this has been a recurring event that has happened many times over the past, couple of years now. Iranians and Americans were negotiating. They weren't doing it directly, but it was as direct as indirect negotiations could be. It was reported that they were nearby, almost in the negotiation center building, with Omani representatives shuttling between them, conducting negotiations and delivering messages. But according to available information, we learned that last weekend they actually met in person during these negotiations, although no official photos have leaked.
Yes, we heard that they shook hands and things like that.
What was on the table? There were two things. The Iranians insisted, we discuss only the nuclear program, nothing else. We are not talking about puppets, we are not talking about money, we are not talking about ballistic missiles. The Americans insisted on discussing everything, but the others refused to attend. So the Americans decided to talk behind closed doors. So what really happened behind closed doors? We're not entirely sure. We know it moved forward, they're discussing it again, and there haven't been any strikes since the talks. That's already significant. It seems like we're moving forward, and I want to say that because this question is on everyone's mind. The same question always comes up, and it's a dichotomous one. Do we choose the path of negotiations, or do we choose the military path? And the answer is both, in fact, because you can't negotiate without having all the military cards on the table. Maximum pressure on the military level, maximum on the political level, and you can't take military action without fully exhausting the diplomatic path.
And I think it's important to say that a lot is happening behind the scenes of these negotiations. While American envoys are discussing all these issues with the Iranians behind closed doors in the presence of the Omanis. Or how, in the region, a huge amount of military power is building up, the Armada, as Trump calls it, which is basically a fancy name for a fleet. The word fleet sounds more like something from Pirates of the Caribbean, but in reality, it's a massive amount of military power moving into the region, as you said at the beginning of the program, more than we've seen since, the invasion of Iraq. Yes.
So negotiations are underway, backed by the buildup of the Armada. Well, of unprecedented size and power. Iran, you might say, is an independent state. How does America dare to enter their space? Well, let's settle this on a household level, because it's hard to understand some things on a state level. Let's say you have a neighbor behind your fence. Every day, 5 times a day, he announces to the whole world, and you hear it, that as soon as he gets a rifle, he'll kill your children. The police came and told you, well, call us when he actually kills someone, because until then he's just a drunk mumbling something, so what, should we arrest him? That's why it will happen. From time to time, the neighbor throws stones at your children, hit them a couple of times. The police came, and the neighbor said that you were crazy, that he had never done anything like that in his life. And finally, you find out that he bought a gun and is raising money for bullets. The only thing he was missing was the bullets. And again, he says, tomorrow I'll kill all his children. Well, I have a question for you. It seems to me you have the following options. Are you going to wait until tomorrow? Or maybe he's just joking. That could also be true, right? If not, well, you lost. Second, you run away and hide your family and children. Third, you try to stop your neighbor by any means. I emphasize, by any means. By any means. You set his house on fire, I don't know. You hang him by the rib on a hook. You hide him in the basement and lock him up and throw away the key. You do whatever it takes to get rid of him and the danger. At the same time, I want to emphasize that maybe he didn't even intend to kill your children. Well, there's also the possibility that he was just joking. Maybe he didn't mean anything by it. And you can hope for that and say, well, there's a chance he didn't mean anything by it, right? Yeah, so he'll say, haha, I was joking for 20 years straight, ha ha ha, and you didn't find it funny? Oh, I thought everyone found it funny. I want to say right away that most likely I'll choose the third option. Maybe I'll try to leave, but there's really nowhere to go, and it's hard to leave my home. So any bastard can kick you out of your home just by publicly threatening to kill your loved ones. You'll get so scared that you'll run away. Maybe that's exactly what he's counting on. So I'm 92%. Sure, since I've already talked to him half a dozen times before and realized that he's a convinced maniac, I'll try to do it myself. or with the help of some buddies or mercenaries. I don't know. If I have to break the law, I'll go into his house and break the law, and if I have to, I'll finish him off. Him. Miserable, as they say. I'll end his miserable life so he doesn't suffer. I understand that this is a terrible violation of the law, but again, what other choice do you have? Is there one? I don't think there are many. The lives of my children, that's what I believe. That's my opinion. Others may not think so. But from my point of view, the lives of my children are much more important and valuable than his life. I sincerely apologize if I upset anyone with my choice. And what about you? You, my dear sirs at home, what would you have done? And accordingly, what would you have done if you were in the place of the United States and Israel? Would you hope for what? What if Iran is joking? What if they say, "Ha ha, I was joking for 20 years," or "still for you"? Well, you kind of want to wait for that little test. Whether he was joking or not, that's all. Goodbye.